Thank you for viewing another webinar by the Accredited Standards Committee X9. Dr. Dustin Moody from NIST will provide an update on the results from their third round of vetting that is part of their post-quantum cryptography standardization process. In this process, NIST is vetting candidate algorithms looking for those that are safe from attack by a large-scale quantum computer. Have you ever wondered what will happen to your data when it is attacked by the big brother of one of these quantum computers? If your data, whether at rest or in transit, is not protected by a quantum-safe cryptographic algorithm, you will not like the answer. The work NIST has conducted over the last 10 years is providing the foundation for standards bodies like X9 to provide standards to the United States financial industry that will protect your financial data. More information about X9 will be provided at the end of this video. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to our channel. Let's get started.
I'd like to warmly welcome everyone again to the Accredited Standards Committee X9 webinar on an update on NIST post-quantum cryptography standardization. Our speaker for today is Dustin Moody, and he will be providing an update on the NIST post-quantum crypto standardization process and what we can expect in the near future. And just on behalf of X9, I'd like to thank Dustin and NIST for their participation in our quantum computing study group. For those of you who do not know, our study group is in the process of finalizing some updates to their informative report titled Quantum Computing Risks to the Financial Services Industry. And in fact, if you'd like more information on that initiative, feel free to contact us. Our email address is posted on the screen above, so that's admin@x9.org, or you can visit our quantum computing page online at x9.org. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to our speaker, Dustin Moody. Dustin, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea and X9 for inviting me to speak again, give an update on the NIST standards here. Okay, looks like it's full screening me, so I can't see the chat. So if there is a question, if someone wants to just let me know that there is, or we can just wait till the end. So most of you are probably familiar with NIST. We are a federal agency that my part of NIST, we work on standards in cryptography, but NIST does a whole lot of other very interesting things with different standards and research going on. Of course, the reason we're here today is to talk a little bit about post-quantum cryptography, and just to remind you of the motivation for that. We see many headlines in the past few years about quantum computers getting larger and different companies and organizations that are building them having progress in getting more and more qubits in their quantum computers. And it's been well known since the 1990s with Shor's algorithm that if we had a large-scale quantum computer, that it would pose a threat to some of the cryptography that we have standardized. Standardized at NIST, the branch or the part that's of most concern for us with regards to this quantum threat is public key cryptography. We have three different standards involving public key cryptography. We have SP 800, 56A, and 56B, which deal with public key encryption as well as a key exchange, like Diffie-Hellman. And then we also have standardized digital signature algorithms in FIPS 186, and that includes RSA signatures and ECDSA. And because of Shor's algorithm, every one of these would be vulnerable to an attack with a large enough quantum computer. And so they would need to be replaced, and that is the focus of our standardization effort. I will note some of our other like the block cipher AES or the hash function SHA-2 or SHA-3. It'd also be affected but less dramatically. Grover's algorithm gives a speed up, but on the other hand, it's hard to, it doesn't parallelize well. So the speed up that it gives won't be nearly as, it won't break these crypto systems, and we'll be able to mitigate it by using longer key sizes and longer hash function output. We wouldn't need to go further than doubling the key size or doubling the hash function output length, but we probably don't even need to go quite that far even. So because of that, we're focused first on the public key algorithms and getting replacement for the ones that we have standardized. So, seeing any presentations dealing with post-quantum cryptography are aware of Mosca's theorem. Dr. Michele Mosca is an expert in the field, and he first came out with this several years ago to help people understand that we need to get this work started well before there's a quantum computer. The basic idea is that your adversaries can be copying down your data right now, and of course they can't read it because it's encrypted, but they can hold on to it and wait until they have a quantum computer later on. And then they'll get access to some of your information. So how do you know if this is a threat? Well, he put a simple little equation to kind of help you understand the risk here. X is how long you need your data to be safe. Y is how long it's going to take for standardization and adoption of new post-quantum algorithms. X plus Y is greater than Z, then you can have a problem today. And that's why we need to make sure that we have replacements standardized well before a quantum computer comes out. For different organizations, you can put in different values for what X and Y and Z might be. X will depend on who you are. ASC has worked with standards. I'm sure you know standardization and adoption is never as quick as we'd like. So Y is going to be 10 years, 15 years, possibly even 20 years or longer. So what about Z? How long until we have a quantum computer? Well, no one knows for sure. That's a research question and no one can guarantee. We'd like to point people to this report that was put out by Dr. where they surveyed a number of experts to give you some kind of an idea on what the experts they surveyed think. Now, again, this is potentially a little bit biased by who they asked, but this is a chart from their report that kind of shows the main results from their survey. If you look at the bottom row of the chart, you can see that most of the experts surveyed think that there's a pretty small chance we'll have a quantum computer in 5 years. If you go up to 10 years, we start to get a little bit more. And then by the time we get to 15 and 20 years, you can see that most of the people that were surveyed felt that there was a greater than 30%, greater than 50% chance that we would have a quantum computer. So maybe that gives us some idea that something in the range of 15 years is something we should be planning for. The White House, as well as other agencies of the federal government, have taken notice. This was a national security memo put out in May that provided advice to federal agencies, making sure that they were planning and preparing for this upcoming transition that we would have to quantum-resistant algorithms. Just recently as well, CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure agency also put out an update wanting to make sure people were well aware of the risk that quantum computers can pose to cryptography, and making sure that organizations are planning and preparing for it. So our NIST project has been going for quite a number of years to work to address this. Our goal is to produce standards, both classical and quantum computers. The project started more than a decade ago, but we really started picking up steam around 2016, where we announced that we would be doing a large international type competition to select new algorithms that we would standardize for what's called post-quantum cryptography. So that kicked off in 2017 when 82 submissions from around the world were sent in to us. And then we proceeded through a number of rounds over the past 5 years to get to where we are today. Earlier this summer, a month or two ago, we concluded the third round of evaluation and analysis, and we announced the first algorithms that we are drafting standards for. And so I'll get into more detail as we continue on here. NIST has run several of these competitions in the past, and currently we're kind of running 2 of these processes. The block cipher AES, which has been widely implemented and used around the world, was a result of the first cryptographic competition that we did. More recently, we concluded the SHA-3 competition about 10 years ago, where we selected a new hash function to go along with the SHA-1 and the SHA-2 algorithms. So I'm talking about the post-quantum cryptography competition today. We also have what's called the lightweight crypto competition, and that's looking for symmetric algorithms that are targeted for kind of more lightweight applications, devices that don't have as much computational power as most applications that are used today. So the post-quantum cryptography process, as I mentioned, has just concluded our third round of as well as what's called multivariate cryptography. This was a very international effort. We had submitters from all around the world in a number of different countries who teamed together. And in each round, we held a workshop where the submission teams could present about their algorithms, as well as other researchers could present results which were relevant to the standardization process. During each round, NIST evaluated each of the algorithms, as well as we invited the cryptographic community and anyone who would like to evaluate them as well. And we saw a lot of cryptanalysis during each round. We saw a lot of benchmarking. We saw a lot of security work done in terms of research being published and presented in journals and conferences. Every round had schemes broken. The first round had around 25 schemes that were broken or attacked. The second round had 7 schemes that were broken or attacked. And even in the third round as well, we had a couple of algorithms that were broken. At the conclusion of each of the rounds, NIST made some tough choices, and we selected the algorithms that we felt were the most promising from each type of mathematical family to advance on to the next round, to preserve kind of the diversity of solutions that we had. So at the end of the first round, we had 26 algorithms that moved on. And then at the end of the second round, we had 15 algorithms that moved on into the third round. And we summarized all our rationale for these selections in a report, which you can find by just Googling NIST 8240 or 8309 or 8413. So the third round, we had 7 finalist algorithms and 8 alternates that were evaluated over the course of about 2 years. The finalists were the algorithms we thought were most promising and would be ready for standardization at the end of the third round. The alternates were algorithms that we still were interested in for potential standardization. We thought that they would most likely need to be in a fourth round of evaluation and analysis. This table here shows the finalists. We had 4 chem finalists, 3 signature finalists, and then also a number of alternates for both the chem and encryption category as well as the signature category. So at the end of the third round, what did we pick? For the chem category, we selected the cryptosystem Kyber, and we also selected the signatures dilithium and falcon. All 3 of those were based on lattices. We also selected Sphinx Plus, which was an alternate, but we had indicated during the third round that this was something that we could do as a result of some of the algorithms in the third round that had been attacked. For algorithms that were moving on into the fourth round for further analysis, we selected 4 of the chem or encryption algorithms. We selected Classic McLeese, BIKE, HQC, and Psych to advance into the fourth round. So if you're wondering how and why did NIST pick the algorithms that we did, we wrote a report to summarize what was going through our mind, what were the evaluation criteria, and how did the algorithms that were being evaluated, stack up. The evaluation criteria had not changed since we announced it prior to the process. Number 1 was security. That's the most important thing, since we need to use these crypto systems to protect our information against classical and quantum computers. The second most important criteria was performance, and that would be measured in a variety of ways, in both software and in hardware. This means in terms of how efficient the algorithms are when you implement them, as well as the cost in terms of bandwidth, like how large are the key sizes or the ciphertext and signature sizes. Finally, we looked at a number of other criteria, such as much as possible, are these algorithms drop-in replacements for existing protocols and networks? Can they provide perfect forward secrecy? Can they be implemented in a way to be resistant to side channel attacks, and so on and so forth? I just wanted to briefly kind of touch on the algorithms that we selected and tell you a little bit about them. And if you have questions, we can get as detailed as you want. Signatures, NIST had 2 lattice-based signatures that we were choosing between. And in fact, previously, we had thought that we would only choose one of these for standardization. These were the algorithms dilithium and Falcon, both based on lattices. And there were some trade-offs that we had to consider when comparing the two. Falcon has smaller public key size and smaller signature sizes, which is obviously desirable. But on the flip side, it had a much, much more complex implementation, which could lead to errors for users that are trying to implement it. Its original design uses floating point arithmetic carried out to very high precision, which for some applications in some environments where you'd be implementing it, that could be challenging. Dilithium, on the other hand, did have a little bit larger key and signature sizes, although still fairly good size in comparison to their competitors. It had a much simpler implementation and had a very good security analysis. In the end, we elected to standardize both dilithium and Falcon. We picked dilithium to be the primary signature algorithm that we will standardize and that we recommend most people implement for general purpose use. But we also selected Falcon for applications which will really need that smaller bandwidth and can handle the more complex implementation. To go along with these 2 lattice-based algorithms, we also selected a signature algorithm that was not based on lattices, so that in case of any new cryptanalytic results that would bear on lattices, we would have another algorithm that is based on an entirely different security assumption. So the best algorithm that was left in our process was Sphinx Plus, which is a stateless hash-based signature scheme. Sphinx Plus is, as the name indicates, based on the security of kind of hash functions. The security is very well understood, and it's viewed as a very conservative scheme. It pays a performance penalty in terms of its cost, and its performance are much larger than both dilithium and Falcon. So that if many applications needed to use Sphinx Plus, it might actually be quite challenging. I'll talk about in a future slide what we're doing to help with that. Nonetheless, we selected 3 signatures to standardize, and those are the 3. On the chem side, the 3 lattice-based finalists were Kyber, Ntrue, and Saber. All were very good all-around algorithms that compared well to each other. In the end, we selected Kyber as the only chem for standardization. Kyber has great security, had a very good part of its specification with a lot of security analysis, and it has excellent performance. It was basically near the top in all benchmarks. We still have 4 chems under consideration in the 4th round of evaluation. Just like in the case of the signatures, we also want to have a chem that is not based on lattices. So all 4 of the chems that advanced on to the 4th round are based on different assumptions than lattices. So the first of these is classic McLeese. It's a very old idea. It was first published around 1979. It's based on codes, very conservative security in most since it's been around so long. However, it has a performance profile that makes it tricky to use in many settings. It has extremely large public keys, although it does have very small ciphertexts. There are 2 other code-based algorithms also under consideration. These are byte and HQC. In order to get the public key size down, they introduce some algebraic structure into the codes, and so that they're able to have key and ciphertext sizes that are a little bit bigger than lattices, but not too much. And both would be suitable for general purpose use for most applications. So NIST anticipates selecting at least one of these code-based algorithms for standardization at the end of the 4th round. The other algorithm is CYP. It is based on isogenies. It was noted because it has very small key and ciphertext sizes, so the bandwidth is really good. But its performance, it was about an order of magnitude slower than most of the other chems under consideration. And we'll have a little bit more to say about CYP coming up. Some of you may have heard some recent news about it. So our timeline, the 3rd round is ended, and we are currently writing draft standards for the selected algorithms. The 4th round has begun. The algorithms that I mentioned are continuing to be studied, and this 4th round will last probably about 1.5 to 2 years, at the conclusion of which we might choose 1 or more of these 4 algorithms to standardize. We're going to be holding our 4th PQC standardization conference at the end of November. It will be held virtually, as much as we wanted to hold it in person. NIST is still not welcoming back to campus yet, so we're holding it virtually. In terms of when will the standards be out, we're writing them right now, and we expect that they should be out in the first half of 2023 for public comment. We'll take a look at the comments that's received. We'll address any of the suggestions or feedback that's sent in, and we hope then to finalize and publish the first PQC standards around 2024. So what exactly does standardization mean? Well, I'm speaking with X9, so hopefully you have a pretty good idea. But basically it's to write up documents that completely specify how you would implement each of these crypto systems, so that if 2 different people were implementing it following the standard, they would be able to do it in an interoperable way. We also usually include some guidance and recommendations that you should keep in mind if you're going to be using these algorithms. So as I mentioned at the start, currently our public key cryptography is standardized in FIPS 186.5 and SP 856A and 56B. When these post-quantum algorithms come out in new standards, we will create new documents. I believe they're going to be FIPS that will contain these new post-quantum public key algorithms. So we're working on them now. We are going to consult with the candidate teams who submitted and designed the algorithms. And that way we can ensure that we have standardized exactly what was in the submission that was sent in to us. This will also include things like which specific parameter sets will be part of the standard, and give a guidance on how much security that these parameter sets are providing. If there are any changes or issues that we need to, we will make sure to seek public feedback so that people know what's going on. We don't anticipate any major changes from the algorithms, but it's possible that some very minor things might need to be tweaked or improved to reflect the latest understanding and research that we have. We will put the standards out for public comment. Public comment will last at least, usually I think it's around 2 months or so that we give people to comment, and we will address any revisions that we need to make as a result of that public feedback. So I talked earlier about the signatures. We have our 2 lattice-based signatures, Falcon and dilithium, and then we have Sphinx Plus. And I noted that Sphinx Plus might not be suitable for many applications if it were needed to be used because of, for some reason, there was some new research that could undermine the security of lattices. So to prepare for that possibility, NIST is going to be issuing a new call for signatures. I think it will be, we'll publish it next week on our website. That will call for additional signatures for us to consider. The deadline there says it's January 2023. I think we changed that. It's going to be, I believe it's March or April 2023 for submitters to submit their signatures. This new call, we intend it to be a much smaller scale project than the main NIST post-quantum effort that we just are wrapping up. It's taken 6 or 7 years to do. The goal of this call is to find signature algorithms to diversify our current portfolio. We want to, specifically, we're looking for a general purpose digital signature algorithm which is not based on structured lattices. Now we'll allow people to send in whatever they'd like, but that is what kind of we are targeting. Another thing that we could very well be interested in as well is a signature scheme with very short signatures, because we know there are many applications that need that. Obviously, the more mature the scheme, the better. And if we receive too many submissions, we will quickly narrow it down and let everyone know which schemes that we believe should be focused on. This will kick off kind of a new process for these signatures. It will proceed through a process. There will be a number of rounds, and it will take years before anything that's submitted as a result of this new call could be considered for standardization. So this is all very much future work to augment our portfolio. And we expect people to use, again, dilithium as the main algorithm for your signature needs. There has been recent cryptanalysis, both during the 3rd round and even actually after the 3rd round. Some of the results during the 3rd round got a lot of people's attention. In particular, there was an attack on the finalist Rainbow that was, it was broken in a nice paper by a researcher named Ward Boyens, who showed that with a laptop, you'd need just over a weekend to be able to break the category 1 parameters for Rainbow. Much more recently, just last month, it also attracted a lot of attention. The candidate Psych, which is in the 4th round, was broken as well. Some very nice research. It was a little bit sudden in its appearance in that there hadn't been a line of work leading up to it. And along with a couple of other papers that quickly followed, showed that the parameter sets for Psych can be broken fairly quickly using a classical computer. And so while Psych will still be allowed to stay in the process, because of the lack of security, it's nothing that NIST will consider standardizing. I will point out that Psych was based on isogenies, and this attack was tailored to Psych. There are other isogeny-based crypto systems that are being researched and could even potentially be submitted to us as part of our signature process. And this attack does not apply to these other isogeny schemes. It very much was tailored to some of the specific things that Psych had as part of their specification. Now, NIST is aware of these developments. We take them into account. The process is built so that things like this happen. People often ask us, well, does this mean you've lost confidence in the algorithms that you're standardizing? And the answer is no. We expect algorithms to get attacked, and we saw that during each round of the process. And that's just what happens the longer that more research goes on. And so it's good to see. It does remind us that there are no guarantees in cryptography, and it is certainly possible that someone could come up with a brilliant new attack for any crypto system. Could be for one of the lattice-based ones that we're standardizing. It could be for RSA or ECDSA. You know, there's no guarantees that somebody will not find an algorithm that will crack one of the schemes that we use today. Briefly want to touch on patent issues. If you were involved in the process, you knew that IP and patent considerations played a role. There were some third-party patents that were potentially relevant to some of the finalists involved in the process. And NIST understands that in order to have wide adoption, we need algorithms that can be freely implemented around the world. One of the finalists, Enshu, had patents that were expired, but there were some patents that could potentially apply to the finalist Kyber and Saber. NIST engaged with the parties that own these patents, and we have reached agreements so that these patents will not be asserted against anyone who implements the NIST PQC standard. We're in the final process of just concluding those and getting all the signatures on them, and very soon we'll have more details to share about that. But we're grateful for those who helped us obtain this outcome, and even though it was a complex and thorny issue, we think we've waded through it the best that it could be done. I do want to mention, besides the algorithms that were part of our process, we have also already standardized what are called stateful hash-based signatures, which provide protection against quantum computers. And these are algorithms that could be adopted right now for signatures for certain application. These ideas for stateful hash-based signatures have been around for a long time, and were standardized in the IETF with 2 RFCs, and NIST followed up with our SP 800-208 that also standardized XMSS and LMS. Now, word of warning on these, because they are stateful algorithms, if an application is going to use them, they have to be able to carefully manage the state, because even one small error entirely leaks the key. So standards documents issue more guidance on that, but indicate that these should only be used for certain applications and should not be general purpose digital signature algorithms. For something like code signing, they would work just fine. So I'd encourage you to look at the standards there to get more guidance on those, but they are already standardized and can be used already. There's a lot of interest that we're seeing and a lot of discussion right now that's going in terms of what's called a hybrid approach to migration. And this is the idea of combining a post-quantum algorithm with a currently standardized and approved, NIST-approved algorithm to establish keys or to do signatures. The idea behind this is that you get security-wise, you get the best of both worlds, in that in order to break it, you would have to break both crypto systems. And this is seen as one of the advantages for why hybrid would be suggested for the upcoming migration, is that it would give us more time to get familiar with these post-quantum algorithms. They are newer, they have not been around as long. So until we have more experience, or to protect against, potential risks from new attacks that could come along, by combining with a currently approved algorithm, you get more assurance perhaps. A negative is that you'll have to implement 2 different cryptographic schemes, so you'll pay a performance penalty. But we're finding that a lot of people are thinking that hybrid is a good strategy to be considering as we transition to post-quantum algorithms. I wanted to point out, in one of our standards, SP 856C, we already accommodate a way that you can use a hybrid approach and get FIPS validation for creating a shared key. And the basic idea is that you would create a shared secret using a NIST-approved algorithm like ECDH, and you'd concatenate it with a shared secret derived from another algorithm, like a PQC algorithm. And then you run that through a KDF, and you can then get out your, your key derived from that ultimately. The FIPS validation wouldn't say anything about the post-quantum algorithm yet, because that has not yet been standardized by us, but it would be saying something about the, the ECDH in this case. So we expect and are participating in the discussion about hybrid, and we'll be issuing some guidance about things to keep in mind when considering a hybrid approach. NIST will also publish more guidance on crypto transitions. This is something we've always done in the past. For example, there's algorithms like 3-key DES. Yet weak, we eventually will disallow them, or like with SHA-1, or if you're using too few bits of security. NIST will similarly provide guidance to these new post-quantum standards, but we have to wait a little bit because we have to have the standards first before we can provide guidance to move to these standards. So this will all be coming within the next few years. Also want to point out that our partner, the NCCOE, has a project to help on the migration to post-quantum cryptography, and they have partnered up with the Department of Homeland Security as well as a number of industry partners to help develop tools that can be used in the transition to migration. They've also got some white papers, reports, and hold webinars and workshops to give more information about this. So if you go to their website, you can get more information or to find out how to be more involved with that project. So NIST is one standards organization. We know that there are many other standards organizations and groups that are working on post-quantum cryptography, and we have very much collaborated and cooperated with all of them. X9 has been doing some studies and has written some white papers that we've participated in and produced some very nice white papers. IEEE has done some earlier standards, and they're initiating some newer PQC standards as well. Just found out about that this week. The IETF has standardized various things with regard to stateful hash-based signatures, and they're currently looking at some approaches regarding standardizing ways that you might do for hybrid. ASC has released guidance about quantum safe cryptography, and ISO is also doing a study period on quantum resistant crypto. Again, NIST is grateful for these efforts. For the most part, everyone has been participating and waiting for the NIST process so that we haven't fractured our efforts. We think that's a good outcome so that we can get good, strong algorithms adopted widely around the world. So what can you do now? We're getting closer to when these algorithms will be standardized, but even before the standards are published, there are things that you can do. Primarily, this involves planning and preparing. You can make sure that your organization has done a quantum risk assessment. You've identified how your information is protected, what cryptography you're using, what type of cryptography you are using, specifically looking for public key cryptography, since that is the most vulnerable. You can be evaluating vendor products that have quantum safe features. Make sure your vendors know about it. Make sure your IT staff is aware of the upcoming transition that will be coming. We'd encourage you to test and evaluate the algorithms that are going to be standardized. We wouldn't recommend that you fully bake them into your products yet and start rolling them out, because there could be some small changes that occur until we get the standard published. So we'd encourage you to wait for that. But certainly you can track developments with quantum computers as well as post-quantum cryptography and make sure your organization has a roadmap for this transition and somebody in charge who will make sure that plan is followed. So in conclusion, the beginning of the end is here. We're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to continue to see standardization work with regards to post-quantum cryptography for a number of years. It's not going to end just because we announced the first algorithms to be standardized. NIST is very much grateful for everybody's efforts. We have a good, strong team internally at NIST, but it's too small to do all the work that would be required for this. So we're thankful for everyone who's participated in the process. And of course, I've got our contact info for our webpage and how to contact us. And if you're interested and haven't already done so, I'd recommend signing up for the PQC forum. That's an online mailing list that we use to make announcements. And there's lots of discussion that goes on that regarding topics relevant to post-quantum cryptography standardization. You can ask questions there, you can find out research results, and so on and so forth. So with that, I will end here and say thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you. And we can look at any questions that have come up, and I'll take questions at this point. Stop sharing so I can see questions here. So there's one that's appeared in the chat. It says, when can we expect the ACVP algorithm validation after the standardization of lattice-based schemes? So good question. We expect that to come out pretty soon after our standards are done. We're in contact with our colleagues who actively are doing the validation, involved with the validation. They are aware of the algorithms we selected, they're aware of how they work, and they're already asking us questions about some of the things that they're considering. And I don't have an exact date or timeline, but it should be very soon after we get the standards published, which again will be in 2024. And regarding the slides, I did send them to Ambria, so I would imagine that, yeah, she said the slides will be shared.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. Sorry about that. Yes, we will be making the slides available to all of the registrants. You can expect, or all participants, you can expect to see an email tomorrow with the slide deck, as well as a link to the recording of the webinar. The webinar will also be made, the materials will also be made available on x9.org tomorrow as well, but be on the lookout for an email.
Okay, so a couple more questions. How will these standards vary for information transmission versus data storage? Well, typically the NIST standards that we have done for cryptography, they're at the level where we are only specifying the basic primitive. So we specify, you know, RSA encryption or RSA signatures, or in this case, it will be Kyber Chem or the dilithium signature algorithm. Those will then be used in different protocols, like in TLS or SSH, or for data storage. But the standard itself is kind of agnostic about the other layers in the stack. We pretty much just specify the basic primitive itself. So another question said, for PQC signature schemes, it is expected that SHA-3 will be required for a hash and sign scheme, or will SHA-2 be allowed in those schemes? That's something I haven't fully determined yet. We're actually having discussions on that internally. There's a debate between saying any approved hash function can be used. While that's nice, it's sometimes the disadvantage is that for interoperability, you then have a very large number of different choices that you can make. And for some implementers, having to support a large number of different choices is not what they prefer. So we don't yet have an answer on that. It could be that both SHA-2 and SHA-3 will be allowed, or we could be more restrictive and narrow down the possibilities. Question from Joe said, what was the group mentioned under DHS regarding post-quantum? So our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence is the NIST group that's partnered with the Department of Homeland Security. So the NCCOE is actually a NIST organization, and if you go to their website as well, they've partnered with a number of industry partners as well, and they've got the full list there with that. So hopefully that answers that question. How will we protect cryptocurrency encryption protection on the blockchain? Yeah, so to the average person, when I start talking about cryptocurrency is often the first thing that comes to their mind. But if you look into the details of how cryptocurrency work, the main cryptographic functionalities that are needed are a digital signature algorithm and a hash function. So quantum computers will impact hash functions in that you'll need longer output, but it will be able to still use the same hash functions we have today, so that part will likely be the same. The part that's different is the signature algorithms will need to be switched to use, quantum resistant digital signatures. So it wouldn't surprise me that cryptocurrencies begin to start using dilithium or some combination of ECDSA and dilithium, so that you have quantum resistance for the signature aspect of blockchain type applications. Can I talk about how the patent issue is likely to be resolved? Will this be a bulk license for most applications, a general waiver when using the standard? I have to be a little bit careful. Our lawyers don't want me to say very much until the agreements have been signed and we can be a bit more public. What I can say is we're happy with the outcome. If you implement what's in the standard, then you won't have anything to worry about. It will be a license that NIST has arranged so that the other third-party patent holders aren't concerned. So we expect to make that license available for people to see, because of course they wouldn't want to use a product without being able to see the license. So that will come out hopefully in not too long as we finalize that. But was AI used for any part of cryptanalysis while selecting these new algorithms? It's an interesting question. The short answer is no. We have not seen AI used very much in terms of cryptanalysis of cryptographic schemes. Just a month or two ago, I did see a paper that was sent to us by some researchers that were using AI techniques to actually do some interesting things for cryptanalysis. It wasn't completely relevant to our post-quantum crypto standardization project, but they shared it with us to kind of show this is kind of cutting edge stuff and that this could be relevant in the future. But over the past 6 years, no, we didn't see any research where AI was used that impacted our selection process. Do we expect a license to include use by standards bodies by like X9? Again, I'm not a lawyer or legal, but as far as I understand it, anybody who implements the standard as described in our standard will be fine. And if another standards body references our standard, uses the same thing that's in our standard, that is also covered and will be fine. I believe the answer is yes, but as I'm not a lawyer, I wouldn't, hold me to the fire on that.
Well, thank you, Dustin, for answering all of the questions. I know there may be some lengthier questions that people are trying to type in, so I'll give those that may still have questions a minute or two to type in their question, or you can also feel free to unmute yourself at this time if you do have a question. But again, we just want to thank you, Dustin, for giving this very informative webinar. Again, as mentioned earlier, the webinar materials, including a link to the recording, as well as the slide deck, will be distributed to participants. You can be on the lookout for an email containing those materials tomorrow. And it looks like there aren't any more questions, but I do believe you received quite a bit. So thank you. Thank you for answering all of our questions today. And again, for the great webinar, Dustin. For those of you who joined us, thank you for joining. If you have any questions or need additional information, feel free to contact us at admin@x9.org or visit us online at www.x9.org. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.